Hello everyone, Dr. Dan, Dr. Pascal here. Welcome to episode number 1 of our Healthy Commute podcast. So we're excited to be doing this. It's gonna be fun. So today we got a lot to talk about.
Yes, and a very interesting topic because typically we don't talk about drugs.
Yes.
But today we're actually going to talk about a very powerful drug that CBC recently wrote an article on about saving 1 in 5 deaths.
Yes, so it said the title was a drug to prevent 1 in 5 deaths. It's called
Food.
So what they're saying here is that this miracle drug to prevent 1 in 5 deaths is actually food.
Making better food choices.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do they talk about in the article?
All right, let's get into it. So the very first thing they talk about, so we'll just read it word for word out of the article, right? So this drug, metaphorically speaking, is called food. And they said that the foods specifically missing in the diets where people are dying early are fresh fruits, nuts, whole grains, and vegetables.
Okay. Now, one of the things that they also talked about, just so that we can kind of set the stage, is one of the things, I think the important part of this is that they're saying that it's not necessarily the amount of bad food people are eating, but the lack of good food that people are not eating.
Specifically, yes.
So
yeah.
A lot of times it's, we all have that, okay, well, I know what, let's say, a bad food is and a good food is. Like, I know an apple is better than a donut. So here what they're saying is not, okay, you have to stop eating all the donuts. Like, okay, I get it, yes, decreasing the amount of bad food you're eating could definitely be beneficial for your health. But here all they're saying is that even though let's say you're eating some bad food, just add more good food to your diet. And here what they're talking about are the fresh fruits, the nuts, the grains, and the vegetables.
Correct. The only one thing that they did say where people were eating too much of something bad is salt. But we both know that we have to take that with a grain of salt, no pun intended.
Nice.
But the reality is they're talking about just iodized table salt, right? Not a mineral salt. So if we're going to be eating salt, salt is not necessarily bad for you at all. It can be very beneficial and healthy if it's the right kind of salt.
What's the right kind of salt?
Well, sea salt or pink Himalayan salts, right? And the nice thing with Costco is they have a great form of pink Himalayan salt. That's what I use. Sprinkle that on my food. And so that's going to be rich in magnesium and other minerals that are also essential and that we need, not just simply basic table salt.
So when they're talking about people are having too much salt, where would the typical person be eating too much salt?
Great question, because it's not just adding salt. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't add salt to my food. Right, but then when we start looking at packaged foods, and that's part of it, if we notice, fresh fruits, nuts, whole grains, vegetables, not one of those has an ingredient label, right? Does that make sense? Those are real foods, whole foods that you're finding on the periphery of the grocery store. This doesn't come with a food label, right? And so when it's too much salt, oftentimes it's coming with a food label, packaged foods, because salt is a fantastic preservative. So any packaged food that you're gonna get on the aisles in the middle of the grocery store is often gonna have a very high salt content to help it taste better and stay preserved, right? So when they're saying too much salt, it's not necessarily adding salt to your food. We have to be careful there. It's removing salt from packaged foods. And if you're gonna eat salt again, use like a pink Himalayan salt or a very high quality sea salt to add to your food. Especially athletes, people that are sweating a lot, you have to replenish those salts, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, the key thing that they talked about, again, good food, bad food, and like you mentioned before, what they want people to have is more real food. And really what we have to kind of back up and start to kind of properly define things is, again, the definition of food. Right? So for me, probably the best way that I could understand it is I got from a great friend, a good Quebecois that now works that's in Michigan, Jean-Guy Daigneault, is he mentioned that food is real food. It has one ingredient. A food product is something with an ingredient list. So for example, when you're eating a carrot, well, the ingredient there, it's just a carrot, right?
Yes.
But carrot muffins now is a list of ingredients. So that is a food product. So here what they're saying is they want you to have more real food.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. And it was a staggering stat. They said if they could just have people eat more fresh fruits, more nuts, and more vegetables, that it would have prevented 11 million deaths worldwide in 2017.
So that's where they get the 1 out of 5 in terms of preventable deaths just by people eating
proper foods,
better foods,
getting high quality nutrition, right?
Unbelievable.
And then so the next part of the article, they're saying, well, is the information really the problem? And they're saying no. And what I mean by information is they're saying that most people are aware of what a healthy diet is today, right? It should come to almost no surprise to most people that eating vegetables and fruit and having nuts and seeds and I guess real foods are healthier for you than eating packaged foods. That's fairly common knowledge today. So why isn't it implemented, Dan?
Why isn't everyone doing it?
Exactly.
The key thing, I think, one of the things they mentioned is cost.
Yes.
Right? So, and if you let's say compare real food to cheaply packaged foods, there's definitely a price, difference. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
One of the key things in terms of cost or the real price of things is, yes, it could be cheaper at the time, but what are the real costs to you as a whole in terms of energy, in terms of sickness and disease, missed days of work? So is it really cheaper, or is it, is there a bigger price to pay because of not eating those good food products?
In a way, it's better to look at it as an investment.
Right.
So that increased cost, that 14% increase in fresh vegetables and fruit, if you look at it, you're investing in your health now to save that on years of quality of life later on. Yeah. So that was definitely one of the main things, yes.
They talked about also taste,
yes.
In terms of like people are used to that packaged, salty, fatty, sugary food. So yes, that tastes better. But again, that's, just trial and error in finding some, because real food really is, that's the true taste right there.
Yeah.
So we just have to be able to learn how to cook with that real food.
And one of the other things, they're not talking about it in the article, but I think the reality is we see it too. And being parents and working full time, people are busy, right? And so you have two parents working full time and 9 to 5, and you're picking up the kids and you're coming home. The idea of preparing a meal from scratch can be overwhelming. So those prepackaged foods, easy meals are way simpler to whip it together in a matter of minutes. When people sometimes might be intimidated by trying to create a meal from scratch, right? Yeah. And that's where the key to doing something like this is food prep.
For sure, because for us, a lot of times, there is a practice, there's a game, there's an event, literally right after school, and my amazing wife is the one that's mostly responsible for this because I'm usually still at work. But one of the key things is whether it's a slow cooker, whether it's pre-cooking something that we could then use right away at home, right? Whether it's when we cook, let's say chicken breast, we could cook a few more so that there's something ready for a salad the next day or leftovers the next day. So key thing is preparation ahead of time so that you're not getting home and going, oh no, what am I going to have? And that's where we open the cupboard. If it's physically there, it'll probably get in. I have a weakness just like everybody else. So if there's an open bag of chips, I'm going to have some.
Especially if you're hungry.
Especially if I'm hungry. But if it's not there and I have something ready and I could just open up, let's say, a container in the fridge full of, let's say, pre-cut vegetables, and I know that's easy and I could easily do that.
Yeah. So preparation, having a plan is key for execution, right?
Yes.
And then just another topic to build on, really about talking about these fresh foods and the highest quality nutrition. The other thing that we want to do is ideally source our food locally. So the reason that vegetables and fruit are going up is because they are susceptible to weather, transportation costs, or a number of things that can affect the cost of these fruits and vegetables. But if you're going to somewhere like, say, the St. Norbert Farmers Market, you have a direct relationship, you're cutting out the middleman, you're cutting out that extra increased cost. You're not really getting transportation costs other than them driving from their farm to the St. Norbert's Market. And so you're going to get, fruit and vegetables that have been picked as close to their date of being ripe as possible. So you're going to get a higher quality food. So I always recommend that if people can go to these markets, source their food locally, not only are you going to save some costs, but you're also going to get just a higher quality food product. And that's really what this article is talking about, is getting the highest quality foods possible, right?
And one more thing that I think I definitely agree with, and though we recommend when we go over, kind of workshops with our patients, is accountability. So, adding more good foods to your diet, yes, everyone knows that would be a great idea. The next thing that's the hardest thing is the follow through. So what could we put in place so that we would have a higher chance of following through for that next week, that next month, that next year, in terms of making sure that we get those good foods?
Right. Well, there's one, like let's say you're doing this by yourself and nobody else is on board with you and you're motivated. Well, a great way to track it is MyFitnessPal, right? And it's not the only app out there, but it's a good one. And you put it on your phone, put it on your computer, and what that lets you do is track everything that you're eating. Because sometimes we forget, what exactly did I eat yesterday? And even though you maybe had a chocolate bar or chips, and we don't want to focus on the bad, we want to focus on the good. But you can look back at your week and say, okay, listen, I ate 6 pieces of fruit and I had 12 good servings of vegetables. And so using something like MyFitnessPal to track what your total calorie intake is, you can look at the proportion of fiber, good carbohydrates and bad carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and you can look at the quality of your food, a week at a time, a day at a time, a month at a time. So I think that MyFitnessPal is a great accountability tool.
Or old school, just a journal.
Yeah.
Where you could just physically write down for whether it's a day or a week, just to kind of see a trend of where you could, let's say, add something into your diet to help things out.
For sure. Then the other thing is social or group settings, right? So places, where are there easy, drop-offs or things that are outside of your control, like the workplace, right? We've all been in an office where, somebody brings in some treats and chocolates, and there's times a year where dozen donuts, and so it becomes easy to just kind of say, oh, I'm hungry, and then when you're hungry, like you said, we're all human, we're gonna cave. And so a good thing is if you want to make a healthy change, if you can, establish that or implement that in smaller offices where you just tell everybody, all right, let's just make a pact that for the next 30 days or for the next 3 months, nobody's allowed to bring in any junk food, right? And just create those healthy habits with coworkers, with friends, and try to create it in your home. And the more you can create that in your community, the easier it is to succeed, right?
Yeah, for sure. One thing just to maybe we could end on is as a whole some good let's say tricks or hacks in terms of diet. For us, we talk a lot about, let's say, a slow carb diet or a keto-esque kind of diet. So where we kind of want to err on are things like fats and proteins to help to fill us up. Correct. So that if you are more full, you're not going to be having as many of those cravings to kind of reach for those bad foods. Right. So what are a few, let's say, easy, let's say fat, protein, vegetable things that patients could, let's say, err on or even get at Costco or things like that?
Yeah, some of my favorite go-tos always, I shop at Costco a ton, bag of avocados.
Right.
Always having a bag of avocados at home, right? Because you're talking about protein, fat, fiber, bang for your buck, and it tastes delicious. One avocado will sustain you for a long time. So avocados. I buy bags of raw nuts. Walmart's got great different sizes of bags of raw nuts that are not salted. So raw specifically, so that we don't change the fat composition. So again, good fats, protein. And then I hard-boil a lot of free-range eggs. So I always have hard-boiled eggs, nuts, and you mentioned the raw veggies. So cut up carrots, celeries, peppers, just different vegetables, cucumbers, always cut up or there that you can just even bring with you. If I'm short on time, sometimes it's honestly grab a whole bunch of veggies, throw it in the bag, couple hard-boiled eggs, avocado, nuts, a piece of fruit, and off to work I go.
That's what I have in my bag for after this. Is I have some hard-boiled eggs and an avocado. Put that in a bowl and with some Himalayan sea salt, and we're good to go. So it's some good fat. So as I'm driving home, I'm not going into a drive-through or anything like that because I'm already full.
You got it. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that's all. So that's the great topic for the first episode of the Healthy Commute.
So a key thing there is obviously just a recap, add more good food to your diet first off before even trying to take away something in terms of a deprived state. Just start by adding some great good foods, good fats, and good proteins, and then from there you'll start to see kind of healthy habits kind of kick in.
Yeah, and as much as you can, think about food labels, right? So if it's just a simple way to look at it, eat less foods if you can with food labels. Try to move to just foods in their whole natural state. Obviously, water intake is important. We don't touch on it, but getting plenty of clean water is essential. And so that's the number one tip for our first Healthy Commute podcast. Hope you enjoyed it.
And have a great Healthy Commute.
See you guys next time.
See you soon.